This is going to be a movie review for Oliver Stone's Salvador, starring James Woods, Jim Belushi, John Savage, and other great actors. Um, so the IMDb summary: a burnt-out photojournalist becomes involved in a Central American revolution. Yeah, and so I think it's based on a real guy, and Jim Belushi too, which is his buddy, and he's living in San Francisco in this cheap apartment with his girlfriend, who I think is Italian, and he has a kid, I think a little boy, and the beginning of the movie, the girlfriend's all pissed at him because I don't know, someone's like got into his apartment and is yelling at her, and it's like a rundown apartment. He's basically broke. Um, he had some big stories in the past, but he hasn't really done anything recently. So he has like no money, and he hears, I think, on the TV that El Salvador, the revolution there's a revolution coming. There's a bunch of conflict there. The U.S. is involved, so he wants to get there, even though it's a total war zone, and he tries to he's I think he's trying to get to the airport, and he's in his car, and then he gets pulled over, and he has like tons of tickets, like he has all of these citations against him he hasn't paid, um and so he gets arrested, and James Woods is just such a good actor. Like he's funny too. Like he's a great actor, but he's also so entertaining to watch. He's hilarious. Like I don't know if a lot of it's ad libbed or what, but like it seems like it because it's just so James Woods. Like he's kind of like a sleazy, fast talking kind of guy. And he's trying to convince the officer that there's another guy named him, and it's not him, and it's just like so obvious it's him, and it's just hilarious. So he's trying to get there, so he gets put in jail. Um, he was gonna meet, I think, Jim Belushi, and he was gonna give him some money, and he bailed him out. And then Jim Belushi's like, "Oh, I just got kicked out of my house, so I need to stay at yours." And he's like, "Well, I don't even have my apartment anymore. My girlfriend's gone with the kid, and or my wife, and so I'm, like I have nowhere to stay." So he's like, let's go to Guatemala, and and then and then Jim Belushi's like he has nowhere to go, so he's like, okay, but they're actually going to El Salvador because El Salvador's in the middle of a civil war. And then when they get to El Salvador, Jim Belushi's like, "Oh, like what the heck? I thought we were going to Guatemala." Like he's pissed at him, and their back and forth is great. Jim Belushi's great in this. They have great back and forth. It's like some of the things James Wood says are just just hilarious. Uh, and same with Belushi. Um, but yeah, so this takes place in El Salvador. There's a civil war going on. There's a right wing and a left wing. The right wing is being basically backed by the United States money, and we have like military there. They're just observers, supposedly. They're giving them weapons and and I think even some tanks. And then there's the left wing, who they call the communists, um, and they're guerrillas, and they're trying to take over the country. So um, so that's the backdrop of the movie. And when they're in El Salvador, James Woods knows, um, I think, one of the right wing generals, and they almost get killed right away because there's a roadblock. They get taken to that general because he says, "I'm friends with them." He is friends with them, so they're kind of okay for a while, but then they start to piss off other people in the right wing there, And there's also this side thing of that the right wing, this the right wing leader, 'cause he's friends with like a general, but there's like a I think he's like the president. Right wing leader is running these death squads, kind of like secret death squads, and James Woods basically ends up calling it out, which puts his life in jeopardy and other people in jeopardy that he knows. Um, and he meets up with John Savage, who plays a journalist. I forget for who. He's connected with some big a newspaper, and he basically is helping out James Woods, and him and Savage are documenting a lot of the killing and the right wing death squads and things like that. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. It's very messed up. I mean, yeah, it's just tragic what was going on there, and um, and in the end, the left wing communists start taking different towns, and also during all of this, there's the election of Jimmy Carter and Reagan, and Jimmy Carter is left wing, Reagan's right wing, and when Reagan wins, then a lot of the right wing in El Salvador are happy, um, but yeah, so there's also the American political side to it all as well. It's really interesting. It's a really good movie. Oliver Stone, great director. This is the first time I've seen this. I've always heard of this movie. It's written by Oliver Stone and Richard Boyle, who's the guy James Woods is playing. So, um, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about the spoilers. I'm not going to go through the whole plot because it's pretty in depth. I think there's a director's cut. I don't think I think I just watched the normal cut of the movie. But it's really good, and so he starts calling out the right wing political leader. He does this in a press conference, and also earlier, his a woman that he knew before and now married in El Salvador because he wants to get her out. Like her brother, when they're having dinner, like and the news, and there's a press conference from the I think he's the president, but they're like making fun of the president, these kids, and there's some of the like the president's goons basically there, and they see this and they don't like it. So basically, an X is on them now, and later on in the movie, they arrest Jim Belushi and her brother. Um, James Woods goes to see the police that arrest him. He bribes them with like alcohol and a TV that he had from San Francisco. And you see this multiple times. It's like everything works on bribes and down there and during this conflict. And I don't know. James Woods is always just so funny. Like when like stuff that comes out of his mouth. But he has this giant bottle of alcohol, and he's able to get Jim Belushi out, but her brother is not. And then they go to the ambassador because James Woods has some friends in the Catholic Church, and they would go to the ambassador. He tries to get the kid out, but they end up finding the body of the kid. The kid ends up dying. Um, and then later on, that Catholic nun this young woman gets killed by the death squads, unfortunately, because they were going to kill James Woods, but he's basically saved by Jim Belushi and John Savage, because John Savage is taking pictures of them, and they don't really want to mess with John Savage too, because he's a connected newspaper guy. Um, but anyways, so yeah, and John Savage is a good actor too. Um, he's in The Deer Hunter. He's in The Thin Red Line. Let's see what else is he in? Man, he's been in tons of stuff. Wow. He was in Platoon, but I guess not. Do the Right Thing. But just a really good actor. Um, but yeah, I really like the movie. If you're interested in, I don't know, like a political journalist kind of movie in a war zone, this is pretty good. It's entertaining, but it's a very dark movie that's very sad at the same time. And I think they kind of show both sides doing wrong. I'd say, although one side is definitely worse than the other. Although I don't really know what happened, after this is right in the revolution, and and then they go to Guatemala, and then they go to Mexico, and then they try and go back to the U.S. But unfortunately, his wife gets deported, and her kids to Guatemala, and then it says he goes and looks for him in Guatemala. So I don't really know what happened with that. If he found him and got him over to the U.S. But but yeah, and James Woods is great. Jim Belushi's great in it. He's pretty funny too, and he I don't know if he gets married to this girl, but he finds a girl there. He's drinking a lot of alcohol. This stuff called Tic Tac, which he says is like, what do you say? It's like 17 cents a gallon or something for it. And but yeah, it's another Oliver Stone movie. I really liked. Um, I haven't seen some of his newer stuff. Um, I liked W. I like. I saw some of Savages. I wasn't really into that. I haven't seen his more recent movies since W. Um, Born on the Fourth of July is a great movie too. Some similar themes to it as this. Um, let's see what else. What else did he do? Any Given Sunday even is pretty good. Um, so so yeah, if you're interested, check it out. I think it's somewhat based on a true story. I know that there's in the trivia it says that Jim Belushi and James Woods met their real life counterparts. In Stone's own words, Belushi stormed out of the dinner in a rage, while Woods did not get along with the real Boyle. Wow, in this trivia, an advisor for the film was killed in El Salvador during production. Director Oliver Stone had a very hard time getting funding for this film. He was forced to put a second mortgage on his house to get finance until British producer John Daly pledged his support to the project. The film was made on a budget of just under $5 million. The infamous scene where this is a hilarious scene where Richard Boyle takes confession was entirely improvised, according to James Woods. Woods also believed that the scene was what garnered him his Oscar nomination. Oh, he was okay. He was nominated for this. Well, it's 1986. Okay, so James Woods, Best Actor in a Leading Role, and nominee Best Writing, Screenplay written directly for the screen, Oliver Stone, Richard Boyle. And Richard Boyle is the journalist who he's playing James Woods. James Woods and Jim Belushi frequently clashed during filming. Their competitive rivalry was secretly encouraged by Oliver Stone. The film is based on a true story involving Richard Boyle, a journalist and friend of director Oliver Stone. Richard Boyle was living in his car when director Oliver Stone first read his stories about Salvador. Director Oliver Stone remarked that Hunter S. Thompson and gonzo journalism were large influences on the film. Yeah, I could see that. I think he wanted, Marlon Brando was director Stone's first choice. He offered the role to Paul Newman and Lee Marvin, I guess for Boyle, for James Woods. Newman liked the project but had too many other interests to take that he was unable to fit into his schedule. Marvin also liked the script but felt he was too old for the role. And he also did not want to travel as much as the film required. Due to his health problems, Marvin died the year after the picture was released. Yeah, he would have been too old. According to James Woods, he went to watch the film at a local theater, and while he was leaving, a refugee from El Salvador knelt before him and kissed his hand, thanking him for telling the story of her family's massacre. Wow. When James Woods discovered that there was a blank cartridge in the rifle which could have damaged his head, he refused to continue with the scene. Wow. So I guess that's at the end, because at the end he's almost killed, but he's basically saved last minute by the outgoing ambassador, and unfortunately they destroy some of his pictures. Because John Savage, I mean, this is spoilers. Like I said, unfortunately gets killed by a plane that's going in to sweep and shoot, and he's trying to get a shot, and then he gets the shot, but he gets killed. It's pretty sad. John Savage is great in this too. And then he's trying to get out of the country with his wife and kids, and they find the film and they destroy it. But he had some in his boot that he kept. So I don't know, but he said that he's like he died for nothing, or he died trying to get those shots. Director Oliver Stone had a very hard time getting funding for this film. He was forced to put a second mortgage on his house to get finance till British producer John Daly pledged his support to the project. The film was made on a budget of just under $5 million. Wow. Man, that's like, I mean, the movie, you can't tell. So Yeah, and I don't know about Marlon Brando as. I mean, I'm glad it's James Woods. He's perfect. Okay, Richard Boyle died on September 1st, 2016, in the Philippines, covering President Duterte's. The film is based on events that occurred in 1980 to 1981. So, but yeah, I guess that's about it. It's a really good movie. Check it out, and that's about it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.